Okay, so here we have the implemented being able to retrieve websites from the server based on the developer ID. It changes, right? What I'd like to be able to do now is perhaps be able to create new websites for this particular user, right? So that if I log in as myself again, I can see the website I just created, right? But if I log in as someone else, I'll just still see the website that I had from the latest time, okay? So let's do that. Let's in the component for the website list, in the template, let's add a form for us to be able to handle that that query. For instance, we might declare an input field here where we can type the name of the website, right? So maybe we could do. I guess we don't need the length here anymore. So there we have. So here we can type in the website name. So we could maybe put a placeholder here that says name, and maybe a label here that says website name. Okay, and then maybe a button underneath that when we click on it, we can add website or create website. And if we click, let's paint this a little bit. This is really a BTN block, and BTN primary. So we have that button at the bottom. There we go. And what we want to do is, if we're going to tie this input field to a model variable on the component, right? So maybe we'll call it in the component. We might give it a name so we can refer to it. So this would be website name. Maybe this would be a string. Okay, we can now say that this input field is going to be tied to that ng model, whose name is website name. Okay? Right? So whatever I type here, right, will be available in that variable. Actually, will be available anywhere it's being referenced. So website name. Right? So if I type it, anywhere where that variable is referenced, right, will be available. Okay, and if I click on this button, I would like to invoke a function on my component, and maybe call it create website. It's going to be a function that takes as argument the name of the website, which is a string, and we're going to what we'd like to be able to do is go ahead and send it over to the server. Hey server, there's a new website created for me. Okay, so we can create a brand new website. So website of type website is a new website whose ID. We can create an ID here. More commonly, we'll create an ID at the server. Right, so we probably don't care about that ID, and we need the name. I forget. Do we have a constructor for this? We do. So it's an ID and a string. What's it complaining about? Oh, it's a string? The ID is a string? Oh, yes, right. So actually, I'll just leave it empty. Yes? Oh, yeah, you can put null. Yeah, that'd be a good option. And this is going to be a constant. There we go. Okay? What else do we need? We'll probably also need who's the owner for this. Right? Who's the owner? And in that, we actually parsed it earlier here in the user ID. Right? But now we need it over here because we need to pass it as an argument, say, hey, this is a website and this is the user ID. So what we'll do, instead of declaring this user ID as a constant, I'll declare it as a variable here that can be used elsewhere. So user ID. Right? And here we're just going to declare it. We'll say that this is this.userid. Okay, and pass it in as an argument. And hopefully this still works. Okay, we're still good. And so now that I have the website, right, I'd like to be able to send it over to the service. I would like to say this.website service. I want you to tell the server, create website, right? Tell the server that I want to create, for this user, I want to create this new website. Okay? Right? Now it's complaining, saying that website service doesn't have that function. Right? So let's go and create it. So website service on the client side, there it is. Okay, it's complaining, saying that there is no website service, create website service. So let's create it right here. So create website service, which is going to receive the user ID, the owner of this, right, which is going to be a string, and also it's going to receive a website instance. Okay, and it wants to load that. Oops. Okay, imported. Very good. And now it's still now it's happy again, right? Because it found that function. All right. All right. So what it's supposed to do is going to have to go out to the server to handle this. So to handle this, it needs again a URL. Let's copy a URL. There it is. And here the URL is going to be exactly the same URL as before. The only difference is that instead of using a get, right, we're going to use a post, right? And in RESTful APIs, the convention is that if you're reading, you're going to use gets. If you're going to create new data, you're going to use posts. If you are deleting or removing, you're going to use deletes. And if you're modifying, you're going to use puts, right? That's the convention, right? So what we're going to do is now send a post to the server. You say return this.http. Send a post to this URL, and the data, I'm going to pass you the data that I want you to use to create this new website. See that? Okay. Notice that the difference between this post and this get is that post not only can send data in the URL, which it is, right? It's sending some data in the URL. The path, the user ID is data here, right? We're considering it as data parameter. But it can also pass data as part of the HTTP body, right? It's going to encode this as a JSON string, right? Pass in the body of the HTTP request, right? Okay. Same thing. This is not going to be a synchronous call. It's going to be an asynchronous call, which we're going to register a response, a callback response coming from the server. It's going to come back saying, okay, done. It was successful. Here is the status of that call. We're going to receive it right here. What we're going to do for convenience purposes, what we're going to do is that after it inserts it into the database, in this case our array, right? It's going to, for convenience purposes, it's going to return the new array, yes? Which now includes this brand new data point which we just added. See that? So it's going to respond the same response as before, right? The list of websites, which should include this brand new website which we sent over. Okay? Meanwhile, in the component, here, this is not a synchronous call. Instead, we're going to subscribe, right, and hopefully from the server we'll get back again the list of websites, which hopefully will have this new website appended at the end of that array. Yes? Okay, this is going to come back and we're going to update the list of websites with the new websites. Yes? Right? So now if we go back and we refresh, notice everything's good. If I now do my post, if I click on this create website, nothing happens. Wait, what? Why is nothing happening? Create website. Let's see. In the HTML. Okay, well, because we never tied the button to a click event that should call our function create website, passing the website name as argument. Okay, let's try it again. If I click on create, notice that we get a 404. See that? Right? It's saying you went out, you created a post. There it is. You generated a post, but the server is complaining, saying that nobody's listening to that URL. Well, wait a minute. Didn't we create a get with that URL? Okay, well, we did a get. It's listening for a get on that URL pattern, but not on a post. Right? So it's complaining, saying that there's nothing there. Notice that we sent the data across. See that? We did send something on the body, on the payload. See that? We did send the name of our new website, but an empty ID. Okay, because we're going to let the server, the database, to decide what the ID should be when it gets inserted into a database. Yes? Right? So let's go now and implement the server side of this end, the end of this side. Okay, so let's go back and go on the server side. So on the server side, now we're not just going to listen for a get, we're going to listen now to a post, to an incoming post. Okay, and we're going to use the same name we used in the client. What do we call it on the client? We call it create website. We're going to call it create website here too. Again, it's only a convention for us to keep it straight in our heads. This is going to receive a request and a response from the Express library. We're going to parse out the user ID from the parameter, request.params, the user ID. Okay, and now we have to extract the website. The website also came along in the request, but embedded in the body of the HTTP request. Yes? We need to extract it from the HTTP body, right? And we do that using just request.body. Body, again, everything that came in through the request from the user, from the client, it's all inside of the request. We just need to become familiar of how it gets parsed and where does it get put in this request object. Right? Okay. The three more important parts is the query, the path parameters, and the body. Those are the three that we most use. But there's certainly other things like cookies, headers. Those are less common to work with, but those are also available there as well. Okay. Now that we have the website, we can just append it to our array. You can say websites.push at the end, the website from the body. Although what we might want to do is use and notice that we have the user ID, we should put an additional field there, the developer ID who created this website. Yes? So let's do that. We can say website.developer ID is equal to the user ID that you passed in as an argument. Yes? So that next time, if I ask for the list of websites for this user that created it, I want it back. Right? Once we're done adding that new website to the websites, we can just send back the new list of websites. Right? We can say response.send back the new array. Yes? Let's try it. Let's restart the server. And if we go back and we refresh our client and we create a new website, it gets, oh, right, we don't want all of them. We don't want all of them. But notice a new one was created, yes? Instead, what we might want to do is, I guess for now, to keep it simple, we can just replicate this, or we can break this out into a utility function, right? That can be called by either one, right? So let's this could be extracted into another function. Function get website for user ID. This is user ID, and we pass in right here, and this returns the websites, right? And so now we can call this and say websites here is equal to get websites for user ID. Okay, and this would be similar. Push there, and this would be, we can copy this, and will be here. Website, it returns those just two websites. Let's restart the server. Let's try it again. So if I refresh, I get just the Facebook and Twitter. And there we go. We just have that one website, right? If I log in as Bob, I don't see those new websites. But if I log in back as Alice, I see my websites and are added. Yes? What's up? Yeah, so if we look at the post, right, if we look at the network and we create a new website, and we create, notice the post that gets created, there's our post, right? And so this is the object that we're passing along. This object is the string representation of what the service is sending, right? Right here. When we post, notice that we pass as argument. The second argument is the object, right? This gets stringified, right? It gets converted into a string, JSON string, and then it's just streamed across as part of the body of the HTTP request. And then on the other side can be parsed out back as a JSON object back from the body, right? And the way that it knows to parse it as JSON, right, is that we had configured last week here on the server, we had configured body parser, right? Out of the box, Express doesn't know how to parse JSON out of the body. It doesn't know how to parse the body, period. It doesn't know what to do with it. If you pass it just a string, then it'll just interpret it as just a string. Here we're saying instantiate body parser. To add it, we're telling app, we're telling Express, use body parser, and so that you know how to parse JSON. Right? So out of the box, Express doesn't know how to parse the body, so we need to load a new module that specifically knows how to parse JSON strings and convert it back into a JSON representation. It can parse numbers, strings, arrays, objects, right? Nested arbitrarily. Okay. Yes. The ID for the website? Yes, we should, right? We should create an ID. Very good question. Specifically, if we want to then click here and maybe navigate to the details of that, so that's a good idea. Let's do that. When we create it, let's go back to the website service server, and here we could add website._ID, right? Because notice that what's coming back from the server when we retrieve the list of websites, where is it? Notice that it's coming back. Some of them, the new ones, like you suggest, right? The new ones don't have an ID, right? Instead, they should. Otherwise, we can't uniquely identify them later on. If you want to update them, right, or you want to delete them, you need to know which one they are, right? So let's create the ID. That's a good idea. We'll say here it's we can use new date and the timestamp, right, and just convert it back into a string. and we'll use as a unique identifier. So now if we restart the server and we load it back and we create a brand new website with ID, okay? When we get those websites, notice that indeed we have one with that unique identifier. Yes? All right, and we'll need to do that. We'll need it in a minute if we want to be able to remove that website. Right? We need to be able to remove it by ID. Yes? We'll do that next.